I know it can be really hard to ask for what you want in your romantic relationships, work relationships, with family, whoever it is. This is one of the most common things that clients come to me for coaching on. So I want you to know that you're in good company and that I'm going to give you here in the next few minutes the same framework I use with clients. It's going to be super applicable, actionable, and we're going to try to help get this conversation a little bit from the surface of it, like how do I say what I need to say and, that kind of thing, to what's the root cause? Why is it really so hard? Because every conversation you have isn't hard. So what are the conversations that, strike a nerve or something that make you feel what, which is why they are so uncomfortable? All right. So I'm Brenda Florida, certified life coach. I love to be very practical. I want you to know how to say something. We'll get to that. But where I'm really at is figuring out that root cause. What's causing the problem to begin with, so then it makes solving it a hell of a lot easier, okay? So stay with me on this. We're going to talk about this for several minutes. No, you don't have to go get popcorn. This is not a feature-length film, but I'm going to have a lot of good, juicy nuggets for you. So I also have a few notes in case you see my eyes darting around a bit. That's why that is, because I don't want to miss anything I want to share with you. So, part one. And at the end of the video, or down in the description also, I am going to share with you a new way I've created for you to get your questions answered and get some guidance on questions just like this. How do I tell my spouse, I think our sex life is boring? How do I ask my boss for a raise? How do I, any question that comes up about your life and relationships. I'm feeling sluggish. I feel like the world is on fire. You're in good company there. What do I do about this? How do I take care of myself in this way? What the fuck does self-love or self-care really mean? All those kinds of questions. I've got a great way for you to ask them of me directly and get a direct response from me that's personal for you. So hang in for that. All right. So let's talk about the barriers to asking these questions, asking for what we want in a relationship. Okay. And what we want may be for someone to stop something. Okay. So keep that in mind. There are several common reasons that people have troubles asking for what they want. Again, whether that's with your lover or with your boss, okay? There is occasionally a fear of rejection. You're afraid you're going to be told no, and you don't want to face that, especially with the boss, or maybe there's something really important you want your spouse to support you on, and you don't want to hear them say no, because if they say no, then that's going to be upsetting on a whole nother realm, and you may not feel it as like a personal rejection, like I don't like you, like we can do with a boss or somebody that's not quite as close to us. Your spouse loves you, but that feeling of rejection is complicated sometimes, and it's bigger than just I like you, I don't like you. It can feel like I don't support you and that kind of thing. So sometimes it's fear of rejection. More often, what it's a fear of is that you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel guilty that you've asked for this. You're going to feel guilty even if they say yes, right? Then as if you're imposing on your spouse, or you're asking for too much or something like that. So guilt, look for that. Look under the surface, okay? We already know it's hard, okay? We'll come back to that, okay? And I'll give you some ways that I give clients sometimes to say something that is hard for them to say. But that's the least of your problems. If we can get to this root cause of why the fuck is it so hard, then we can really start to have some freedom. And sometimes it then just becomes easy enough to say. That's enough, figuring out why it's hard. Sometimes it still feels a little hard. We have to work on that, but that's okay. We're all in a process. We're all in a journey. Okay, so we have rejection and guilt. Another thing that could make it feel so hard is that you're probably, especially if you're listening to this video, very conditioned to believing you need to put others first. So how your partner might feel about it, or are you asking too much? Like maybe you want to ask for help with your kids or domestic things or whatever it is, and you feel like, oh, they already do so much for me. They already give so much. They're already so tired. You know, I shouldn't be asking. That's a hair's breadth away from guilt right there. And it's all about putting other people first instead of prioritizing yourself. Okay? So that's another reason it can be so difficult. And another one, frankly, is when you are accustomed to having relationships with people who are not very supportive or not very helpful. You're just not used to asking for what you want. So a quick story there. I did not grow up in a home that cared very much about what I wanted. And my folks weren't mean. I mean, my dad was mostly gone anyway, so he was really nothing, had nothing to do with this. My mother loved to say no, you know, and so I just, by the time I got married, I say by the time, at the ripe old age of 18, when I got married, I just wasn't accustomed to asking for what I want. By then, I didn't really even think about it that much because my mom had already kind of conditioned it out of me, okay? So wherever you are, I'm pretty far on that. I used to be pretty far on that spectrum. You may not be that far, but you may not be used to having people respond to what you need in a loving way or in a way that says yes. Of course, nobody's going to be able to do what we want all the time. I don't think that's what anybody here is looking for. But when we get primarily no's, or we talk ourselves out of it before we ask, that ends up creating an internalized no. See, that's the other problem with this, is when we let that fear of rejection, or we don't want to feel guilty, or we're putting others first, and so we just don't even ask. It's like we've just told ourselves no. And so that just goes in the bank of no. You don't get to have what you want. You don't get to have what you desire. You don't get to ask for what you need because it doesn't matter anyway. All of that just builds up. But in that case, we did it to ourselves. And that's even arguably more harmful. So the key thing here to this part of it is that most of your relationship frustration, again, in all relationships, romantic or otherwise, is actually because of your unexpressed needs, and probably, not necessarily, but probably not from your partner. Now, when you know it's from your partner, it's because you've been asking for those needs to be met in a way that is clear, okay? I used to think I was asking for things when I wasn't clear at all. And so my partner, who was not prone to being responsive anyway, it was very easy for him not to be, okay? So there's of course a spectrum in all of these things, but a lot of times we become inadvertently, unintentionally, our own worst enemy because we don't ask for what we need. And so then we don't get what we need, and it just feels like that's the way it's always going to be. And it just feeds the fuel under those messages that all of us have heard at one time or the other, or internalized of, you know, we're not good enough, or don't deserve that. We don't really have value unless we're giving. And so I can't ask for something I need, or the guilt of it, all those things. So you can see that's why this part of the root cause is so much more important than the actual how we say what we say. Although I want you to learn to be really clear and concise and use basically as few words as you can. Again, we'll get to that part at the end. But so much of the problem is so much deeper than what it seems like on the surface. So in a one-on-one session, this is the kind of stuff we spend a lot of time with. If we haven't solved it by getting to the root cause, then we practice how to say things a new way or a different way or a clearer way or something like that. I also want to say sometimes we're in relationship, whether it's with spouses or friends or parents or family members or people we work with who are not interested in our needs. They're narcissists or whatever. I was for many years a collector of narcissists, not on purpose, but, kind of subconsciously. And so that is how we find out, is this person really a good match for me? Because if I start asking for what I need, I'm doing my part here with all these things we're talking about. So I'm asking for what I need. I'm clear. I'm concise. I'm mindful, thoughtful, doing my own work, and I still keep getting no's, then I know this person is not for me, okay? They are too over-involved, over-attached to getting their own needs met, and they are not going to be a person who can meet mine. And that's fair. That's not judgmental. That is just, the experience of it. We don't have to think they're a terrible person. We don't have to hate them. We don't have to do any of that stuff, whether it's a place we work or a place we love. Of course, our lover relationships are more complicated, but hey, it's not that easy to find a job these days. So the job ones can be just as complicated because you can't just leave necessarily. But at least then you know what you're dealing with. It's just, okay, so I'm in a situation where I'm partnered in one way or another with a person who really doesn't have what it takes to get past themselves and be able to also be supportive of my needs. And there's plenty of people like that. So back to the framework. Okay. So I've kind of touched on a couple of these, but so part 2 is going to be about handling these root causes. Okay. Going a little like, how do we actually, even if I understand I'm doing that, I have the awareness for doing that. What the fuck do I do about it? So there are several, this is pretty much all mindset work, if that makes you feel any better. Okay. Number 1, for various reasons from your childhood or past experiences, you have been essentially taught to think in this pattern of, I'm not going to get my needs met, or, they're going to reject me. I'm going to feel guilty, all, whatever your particular top 3 songs are in that realm. You've been conditioned through experience and then how your mind processed it and how you were even taught to process it, right? Like our culture teaches us, religion teaches us, all kinds of things teach us how to mentally process something and what something mentally means. So these are patterns in you that are well conditioned already. And so that's hard, okay, which is why one coaching session doesn't do it. But the good news is they're also just mindset patterns that you can dissolve, I'll say. It's always hard to know what word to use to describe that accurately. They don't always just go away, and they certainly don't do it in a moment, hardly ever. But there is, like, if you put, sugar in warm water, it will dissolve. Put it in really hot water, it'll dissolve fast. The colder the water, the longer it takes. But, being in hot water isn't always fun either. So sometimes we shouldn't complain about how long it takes us to get over a built-in pattern. But anyway, so you want to create some mindset shifts. And what they often come down to is like an opposite statement of what you've been telling yourself. I'm not going to be rejected. I don't need to feel guilty. Okay. And in any kind, whatever your obstacle is, whatever that is, I can't ask for what I need because I'm supposed to be serving others. No, I get to ask for, I deserve to ask for what I need. because those opposite, you've got to find that place in yourself. It'll usually start intellectually before you really feel it emotionally, where you know that's true. And I think for me, the easiest way I've done this is because I happen to have children. So I can look at it through the lens of how I would mother my children. And I would never say to my kids, don't ask for what you need. You don't deserve it. Feel guilty for asking somebody to do something for you because you don't deserve it. I would never say these things that we say to ourselves. If they were worried about being rejected, I would say, let them say no, because somebody saying no to you isn't a statement at all about you. It's a statement about the other person, So all these ways that I can view it through the lens of myself as a pretty decent mom, and versus how I tell the story to myself. Okay. Now, if you don't have kids or you can't relate to that, even though you were a kid, sometimes people access it through, what do I wish my parents had said to me, or whoever the caregivers were, or the teachers or coaches or whoever that fed you some really negative message about your worthiness, or, not speaking up. Children should be seen and not heard. Is it any wonder as an adult you would have a hard time speaking up? Sure, intellectually, that you have the right to speak up, but it doesn't feel that way because you've already been preconditioned mentally and emotionally to feel opposite of that. So that's why even things we know intellectually will still be problems in our lives, because on an emotional level, the dissolution hasn't gone all the way from our head to our heart, so to speak. And so I don't believe that statement, I'm not good enough, I should feel guilty for other people asking me to help, whatever the statement is. I know that's not true, but that belief hasn't dissolved enough that in my feeling state, I don't feel like it's true. And when we don't feel like it's true, or it is true, whichever is the, disabling part of it, then that will tend to be how we act. So we've got to get this mindset stuff going at the level that it can work all the way down to, no, I feel that. Like, I just feel it even when somebody or something happens that would usually throw me off or intimidate me or make me want to zip it and not speak up for myself or somebody else. I feel how I deserve to say what I need, to ask for what I want, to speak up for an injustice I see happening. Like, that comes from a deep feeling place, and it just takes time. It just takes repetition of doing it this way to undo, or to really what you're doing is you're creating neural pathways from that old pattern of doing things. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about the surface level parts of it. I think you've got a good taste, a good flavor for a little bit on what to do with those root cause pieces. Number one, identify what they are. What's that message in that conversation that is intimidating you or causing you to keep your mouth shut? What is that statement? Like, go with it. Ask yourself, 3 or 4 or 5 times, but why does that matter to me? Why does that make this feel so scary? Why, and get down to that. Well, I don't want him to say no. Well, why? Who cares if somebody tells you no? Oh, well, because that's going to mean I'm not good enough. I just did that in 2 steps. It might take you more than 2 to get there. But, that's it, to break that down into why, and then you'll get to that thing that is, I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. I'm supposed to be seen and not heard. There can be a lot of gender things, at least as a cis woman. There's tons of messages I was given my whole, until I moved out of the house at 18. Well, really after that, because I stayed in the same religion with a husband who was in the same kind of religion. And so we all believed men were better than women, and that women were meant to serve. Men were supposed to go, make the money and be the head of the household. But I was supposed to be subservient. I was supposed to be the helpmate to my husband. So that message doesn't give me much room to speak up or ask for what I want, right? So it took me a long time to break out of these root cause issues. I was in a lot of therapy, really excellent therapy that helped me go through that process and grow out of that. But that's why that root cause is so important. But meanwhile, it's not like we can solve our root cause problems in a day. Okay. So meanwhile, there's this conversation I need to have. So here's the practical side of it. Get clear on what you really want. Ideally before you bring it up, but if you bring it up, it's a disaster. That's okay. Just let it go and then go back to the drawing board and say, okay, how can I make this more clear and really more simple? Usually clarity in communication is about simplicity, not being condescending like you're a dumbass and that's why I have to say it this way, okay? But the energy of simplicity. So you just want to say what I really want or what I really need is an afternoon away from the kids. For you to not be looking at your phone while we're having dinner together or whatever the thing is. And that's it. That's all you say. You don't, what we tend to do when we're afraid to say things is we preemptively, because we want to preemptively strike here, right? We build our case. Oh, I really wish we had more connection and we did this and that and da-da-da-da because I really miss you. And of course, it's only because I love you and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I really want you to not look at your phone while we're having dinner. And, then we add more, because I would feel so great. And I mean, even if we've practiced and tried to be purposeful, so we're not doing it in a moment of anger, then we might just say, we feel, like we're not important. You're rejecting me. Everything's more important than I am, blah, blah, blah. It might go that way. But whatever, there's a whole lot of blah, blah, blah in what I just said, right? So look at it as just like if you needed to say it to a 5-year-old, how could you say it to a 5-year-old that is just the most simple and concise? Again, not in a condescending way because you think your spouse is acting like a 5-year-old, even if they kind of are. You just want to say, here's the deal. When you pick up your phone while we're at dinner together, I feel set aside. I feel dismissed. And I don't like the way that feels. Are you willing to not have your phone when we're at the dinner table? Or something like that, right? Like I could make it even simpler. It feels very dismissive to me when you're on the phone while we're trying to have a conversation or have dinner or whatever the thing is, right? And I'm wondering if you can not do that. And then you just zip it and you wait for them to respond. And you don't start building because everybody's going, oh, but I know what they're going to say. And a lot of times when we've lived with a person for a long time, we can be pretty accurate about guessing what they're going to say. But just give yourself and your partner the love and the grace and the space to be open to the fact that you've just shared something a little bit differently. And so maybe they're going to respond a little bit differently. Now, if they don't and they kind of clap back at you, then maybe you just decide, okay, I don't want to get in a fight over this. I'm working on all this communication stuff myself. I'm kind of a newbie. So let me just set it aside and revisit it another time. That's fine. That's great. Okay. Then you can kind of regroup and you'll know what he said or she said. And so now you have that information. So then maybe you come back with, I'd love to revisit our conversation because you said whatever. And I'm wondering what that means to you or, what that means to you. I'm wondering what that means to you is just usually a good question for just about anything. Because if he or she, I'm saying he because I've been married to men, but this is not a gender issue or a non-gender issue. Everybody can do this. If they come back with something that is like, well, you always da-da-da-da-da, whatever, okay? So then you can say, well, I'm curious about that because when I brought up this, you said that. And so do you feel like I'm leaving you out the way I feel like you're leaving me out when I do this thing, because maybe you are, right? But now we're having a conversation that is about curiosity, not my way, your way, my way, your way. That's what we've got to get out of. That type of, we're just asserting our own platform. And until you say yes, there's no right answer. That's not a conversation. That doesn't help relationships grow. Okay. So meeting your partner with curiosity. Oh, really? What makes you say that? Or I'm curious about what that means to you. Or, whatever it is. Like, those are just good kind of open-ended ways that aren't defensive. Because as soon as we're defensive, we're really inviting a defense move against us. So as much as you can stay aware of it, try not to move into defensiveness and just let it go. Okay. And, then maybe you need to excuse yourself for a few minutes to get your own shit together, or say, okay, we'll visit this another day, and I'm going to go sit on the back porch, or I'm going to go, whatever, run some errands or whatever. So if you need to get away because you just need that space, whatever it is. Now, another piece, super important. So clarity is number one. Time and setting is number two. We could kind of say it's number one, because before you speak in the clarity, you want to do the time and setting part, but you've got to think of the clarity first. So that's why I have time and setting as two. So I don't mean that what I'm about to say in a super manipulative way, but there is a right moment, or better moments than others. So if you really wanted to bring up that phone at the dinner table conversation tonight, and your spouse walks in the door and is just like, my God, I had the worst day ever, maybe tonight's not the night to have that. Okay. Set it aside for another day. You want to have at least the stage set for both you, or it could be on your side, right? Like, you really wanted to talk about it today. You just don't think you can handle it one more day, but you can tell you're really agitated, or you didn't sleep good last night, so you're just on edge, or the timing isn't right for you. That's okay. It's not going anywhere. Just let it go for another day or two until the timing feels better. Because ideally, you just want both of you to be in a fairly relaxed, even keel kind of state to bring it up. You want to be, kind of as distraction free as you can. If you have kids in the house, that can be hard, but maybe you guys just say, hey, mommy and daddy want to talk, and we go out on the back porch or up to our room or something like that. But you don't want them to feel ambushed by it. Okay. Now, my kids have been grown and out of the house for a long time, so I haven't had to think this way. When you're two adults with no children, it's obviously a lot easier to find a good time than when you have small kid or any age kid at home. But that's what you're going for. And then number three is you want to, this is kind of a bigger context around clarity. You want to talk about, like, from an observation, not a judgment perspective. When this happens, when you're on the phone while we're at dinner, or when, whatever else, when you're not interested in sex, that one's more juicy. When we go weeks and you're not interested in sex, then the feeling, I feel, not you make me feel, nobody makes you feel anything. She could be married to somebody who hasn't been interested in sex for weeks and love it. Okay. So it's not about them. It's about you. I feel this way. Okay. I'm owning that. I own that when we don't have sex for weeks and you're not talking to me about it, or there's no foreplay, there's no flirting, there's no touch, then I feel whatever it is. Super horny with nowhere to go with it. I feel insecure about whether or not you're still feeling attracted to me or connected to me on a sexual level. I feel maybe worried about you that, something's off. Because if you've been having sex regularly for a period of time and now suddenly you're not, is something going on for you, But whatever it is, I feel this. You're not making them responsible for how you feel. Okay. And then ask for what you want to ask for. So it might be something like, are you willing to share with me where you're at in that, or what, if you've noticed that? Maybe they haven't noticed it's been weeks, okay? You could say, would you be willing to share with me what makes it hard for you to take a break from your phone? Or something like that. You're going for an open-ended, non-judgmental question. Because as soon as you come out with somebody with judgment, you're doing this wrong, you're making me feel, it's like, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. When you can come at it with loving curiosity, I really want to know, like, what's going on for you, or how is this for you? Because for me, I feel dismissed. But if I was sitting here on my phone, would you, what would that feel like to you? Like, you're going for understanding. You're going for depth. You're not going for a fight per se. And just because you want to ask for your spouse to not be on the phone or to start having sex or whatever, that's fine to be part of it. But if you just come in, no holds barred with, we've got to have more sex, you got to put your phone down, that's no way to get either of those in a way that's going to feel good. So I hope that's helpful. What I want to share with you that I said I would mention at the end, and I know this has been actually a little longer video than I had intended, but hopefully some really good stuff for you here, is that I have a program, I guess you could call it, that I call the Answer Vault. And with the Answer Vault, it's not coaching, it's not one-on-one coaching, but it is like one-on-one question and answer time, okay? So you could message me, I'm going to have you voice message me on a free, in a free way, text messaging or a third-party platform that is free. So you can message me. I can hear your voice. I'm so frustrated my husband won't put that phone down, or we haven't had sex in 3 months, or whatever. And I don't know what to say. I don't know how to bring it up. Great. You record that. And as soon as I can, but surely within 24 hours, maybe a little longer on the weekends, I'm going to voice message you back so you can hear my voice. And I'm going to say, okay, look at this, try this, have you, experienced that? Like, whatever. I'm going to ask you or tell you, give you some guidance on what I think could help you in your situation, both kind of from this, here are things for you to think about that might get to the root cause of why this is causing a problem. And then here's some things on the surface. Here's how we could bring it up. Here's how we could talk about it, suggested language, that sort of thing. Okay. And I'm offering that now with a 2-week free trial. So just go to the link that's in the description, or I'll probably drop it too in the very first comment, so it's easy to access. And you can get all the information about the Answer Vault, and also sign up. And so you'll get your 2 weeks free, and then it'll be a month-to-month subscription. You can cancel at any time. And there's 2 levels, so you can answer, so that you can have more questions in a month. One is 4 questions a month. One is 12 questions a month. And so basically unlimited, except I knew I had to put some kind of number on it, so somebody didn't ask me 50 questions in a month. But, 4 or 12 questions, but 2-week free trial on it. And I did it because I want people, to experience what it's like with me, because obviously if you like how these questions go, if you want to go deeper, you're going to already know that one-on-one coaching with me is going to work for you. And I'll know the same about you, and we can just dive in, right? Because we'll already have a bit of a relationship. It is not meant to replace one-on-one coaching, because I can't be nearly as thorough. I won't know deeper parts of you that I get to know once we're coaching together. But it absolutely has its place, and it's so affordable. I wanted to be accessible. I'm really on a mission right now. This is when I'm recording this is March of 2025. And the world, it feels like a crazy place for most of us. And there's a lot of uncertainty ahead. And that makes all these things more challenging. And so I really want to offer myself and my services in certain ways, at least at like as cheap as I can do it, just so more people have access. I'd rather be working my ass off for less dollars per hour, frankly, and more people getting the support they need. Because now is not the time, I don't think, this is for my own business. I'm not criticizing anybody else who makes a different choice. For my own business, this is not the time to charge as high of a price as I could be based on results. Like, all my clients have had the most amazing results, and you'll see some testimonials on that Answer Vault page. But I mean, I could charge double what I'm charging now and feel totally comfortable. From the, is it worth it? Do my clients get the value out of it? Yes, because this kind of stuff we're talking about really is, not to be corny, MasterCard-ish, it is priceless. When we make these changes, our life evolves in a really positive way. It doesn't mean shit doesn't still happen to us, but whatever comes at us, we're handling from a higher level. We're handling from a higher version of ourselves. And you cannot put a price tag on that. But I understand personal finances and uncertainty in the way things are going, at least in the US, but also all over the world with the way the US is doing tariffs and stuff like that, that there's also a lot of uncertainty financially right now. And so if you are, feeling like your budget's not going to support my regular prices, then this was a way for me to kind of answer the call and be able to support you, at least on a limited level, that's going to be super, super affordable. Okay. So with that, I will, of course, subscribe to my channel. There's other great videos you could go watch. Watch this one again. There was a ton. This could have been an hour-long, webinar. Ton of information I gave you here. And reach out to me directly through my email address. Find me on Instagram, whatever's easier for you. And, join the Answer Vault so you can start asking me your questions personally. I will look forward to hearing from you.